Hello and welcome to another video. And this is going to be what I would change Information Warfare version 2. It's going to be updated with some new information I got from the Steam launch party, talking to an engineer there, and just a more simplified, boiled down version that would be easy to implement. So something that happened at the PTS4, they said that, okay, we're not going to do any information warfare stuff to put into the game immediately because it's just a little too complicated right now. We want to make sure it works well before we put it in. And I personally think they ran into that because they had just far too many variables. They had, target retention delay, target acquisition delay, sensor profiles, sensor ranges. It was just far too much information to start with. So I want to boil it down to a single variable system, and that would be detection ranges. Detection ranges, as if you've watched my other Information Warfare one, there's also an explanation there, but I'm just doing a quick one to make sure everyone's on the same page, so bear with me. Detection ranges basically means that your mech is detected at the range listed. So currently, everybody's detected at 800, as long as there's no shenanigans going on with sensor range increasing items or things like ECM. Just everybody's at 800, which doesn't seem fair when you have something like a locust. You can see it's a tiny little locust here that will go and stand beside something like the great big imposing Atlas, and it's detected at the same distance, or even the more damaging Direwolf. It doesn't seem fair, and it doesn't seem realistic either. You would think that if there was some sort of sensor technology, it would go off of a cross-section, radar cross-section or something, but all of those things have a stronger response based on the size of the target. So if you have a really, really big target, but it's really, really far away, it'll look small. And if you have a small target that's really, really close, it'll look this equivalent size. I think that could be applied here, and basically to get an idea of how far away things should be to be detected. These smaller mechs, especially like the Locust, should range somewhere around 250 to, say, 350, 400 for the stronger ones. So the rule would be the smaller and weaker in combat your mech is, the shorter your detection range. So the absolute lowest would be the Locust, while the absolute, say, highest of the lights would be the Arctic Cheetah, because it's the strongest fighter in the lights. You do the same thing for all of the different chassis. So the Cicadas are the lowest of the mediums. They have a detection range more like a light, while, say, the Stormcrow is the highest of the mediums, and you just go on and on. The Dragon's the lowest of this, or whatever you want to do, and the Timberwolf is the highest of this, or the Quick Draw is the lowest. You get the idea. You would range all this out, and it would give benefits in the fact that smaller mechs are less likely to be seen, giving them a modicum of stealth. They can flank, they can get away, they can poke without being immediately popping up on sensors and a couple Gauss flying their way in just a second. It also gives those stronger mechs a downside, because you're going to be seen by the enemy. You're going to be targeted first. So when your entire team is pushing and you're in the Direwolf, the enemies are going to get the Direwolf's sensor information first, and that's who they're going to be shooting at first. So it makes that Direwolf a shiny beacon of, I'm a big bad Direwolf, shoot me now, because I have a lot of guns. Where the smaller mech that's standing beside him won't have that attention be drawn to him. He'll be relatively invisible. For some examples here, oh my god, that's the wrong page. There we go, detection range. This is my economy page, and I'll get to that one in a future, what I would change. We have my idea for what these ranges could look like. And along with this, you change all of the equipment stuff all of these like the sensor range modifying equipment to work with this new detection range value. And the big one is ECM. Currently, ECM is minus 75%. Everyone is 800 meters, but if you have ECM, you can get to 200 without somebody noticing you. So that's minus 75%, and this is way too big. I personally would like to see it somewhere between minus 50 and minus 25, where I found minus 35% to be approximately correct in terms of where it should be. Maybe it's going to be 37.5, it's going to be somewhere around there, but I feel like this is a really good state. We can look at the different base ranges here on the left, and we can see how things interact with them. And I've made it all set up here with BAP and advanced sensor being separated, so that way I could change these around if I wanted to, and everything down the line updates. And that's why I love monkeying around with Excel, because you can set everything into be formulas. So we have the base range of, say, 750. That's the closest to our current 800. With BAP, it would put it up to 937. With BAP and advanced sensor, it would go to 1125. With just ECM, that 750 detection range mech would have a detection range of 487.5. So it's not like when you're under ECM, you're completely invisible, but it is giving you a significant benefit as long as your opponents aren't prepared with sensor range boosting items in order to counteract your ECM. Because as soon as this opponents have a BAP, even excluding the fact that BAP will counter the ECM completely once it enters the BAP's range, you can see that person with a 750 base range out to 675. So you are negating the majority of the ECM benefit by taking BAP. And if you take BAP and advanced sensor, you're actually negating and then plus 10% out from the 750 to 862.5. So that way, look at that. You're actually completely negating the effects of ECM, minus the fact that ECM increases the time it takes to get a missile lock on a target within its area. It's sort of a soft missile umbrella that it provides, which I think should be the role of ECM. Maybe that aspect of ECM is buffed more to compensate for the fact that it's going to lose this sensor range stuff. But it makes it so that even if you're under ECM, an opponent that has BAP and advanced sensors can see you. And you can still target them, and you can still get their information. You can still have a meaningful interaction of a battle without it being, you're invisible, and I can't tell what damage I've done to you. Moving on from there, I had a conversation with an engineer at the Steam launch party, and it confirmed something for me of how they do convergence. And this is a very important thing, is that when they do convergence in the game, so let me just, do I have any mechs with laser beams? Just jump on my awesome here and jump into the testing grounds. When they do convergence in the game, they do a raycast, which means that they shine basically a laser out from your cockpit and they read the first thing it interacts with. And they put your crosshairs on that. So if I look at this building here and I pan up, you can see it's nice and smooth. I'm in first person. But if I switch to third and then also pan up, you're going to see this jump. Boop, right there. That is because I'm seeing, because my camera is now a little bit higher, I'm seeing a different perspective. I'm seeing more of the roof of that building, which my first person can't see. So the raycast can't land there. And it causes this jump when it resets to the new raycast position when I move my cursor up and down. And they do convergence by simply taking the XYZ coordinate of where my weapon emitter is on my mech, and the XYZ coordinate of wherever I'm aiming, wherever that raycast is landing, drawing a straight line, and then having the weapon fire and follow that straight line. So if I aim at a mech like this guy here, I shoot, my weapons are just going to converge on his armor because that's the XYZ coordinate that my targeting is being fed. Now, this is okay, in my opinion. It's not that great, actually. What I want to see is I want it to be able to target him, aim to the side, and then shoot. And instead of my weapons converging right there on the ground, I want them to converge in the air at the distance of 72 meters, which is how far he is away. So basically, whenever I have an active target, that sets my convergence. That sets how far away my weapons are going to converge. And this has amazing benefits for a system with detection ranges, because the larger mechs, the more powerful mechs that are out there, will be fired upon with greater accuracy of weapons, because people will be able to get a target lock and people will be able to converge on them, where the mech standing beside them, which say is under ECM or is a weaker mech like a Locust, you can't converge on it. Your weapons will fire out to infinity, staying the same, just straightforward based on the physical location on your mech at that target, because you can't get a weapon lock. And so you would go, oh no, like, I can't focus down that light standing beside the direwolf because I can't get a lock on him. Of course, you could do something cheeky by locking on somebody who's close to that person's range and then firing at them. But, you know, that would be a counterplay. That would be interesting interaction. So that negatively affects strong mechs by making it easier to shoot them with accurate damage, and positively influences weak mechs by making it harder to shoot at them with concentrated damage. And you can do this with this mathematical formula here. I'm just going to set these back to my previous numbers. I had recorded this once already, and I found out, oh wait, it took me way longer than I expected. So I'm trying to do this in under 10 minutes. So we have our origin point. This is the XYZ from your cockpit, basically. So origin 100, 100, 0, and this works with Z values. All the math works out, but it doesn't look very good on a 2D plane like this. So that's the only reason I don't have these Z values put in here. So ignore them for a moment. So we have our origin point, 100, 100, 0. And we have our raycast. All the green ones are numbers that I put in. Say 400, 500, 0. So that's where we're aiming at, and that's where it's hitting terrain or a mech or whatever at that distance. Then we have our distance to target, and I know they have this as a variable because it's right there, look, 72 meters. We put that in here. We do a calculation to the raycast. So we take, well, first we get the change. So we take where the raycast is minus where the origin is to get to get to 400x from 100x, we had to increase by 300, basic math here. And the same thing for the y and the z. To get the distance from our origin point to the raycast point, we just throw these three numbers here through Pythagorean theorem, and we come out with 500 meters. Just the way this works out is 500. So now we can say, okay, we have the distance to the target, we have the actual distance for the raycast, and we want to basically put a point along that line where it would be equivalent distance to the mech we have targeted. So we just, to get a ratio, we take the distance to the target divided by the raycast distance, and we get a 0.5 ratio. Then we go and take this ratio and times it by our change, which gives us a correction. So the 300 times the 0.5 will give us 150 as our correction. Then to finish it off, we add this correction back into the origin, and that gives us a final position. So in this example, 100 origin to 400 X. Okay, we want it halfway along that distance. The change is 300, halfway is 150, and then adding back on, so that'll be 250X. And that puts us right here, right in the middle. So you can see 3 over and 2 up, 3 over and 2 up. It's the same thing as we went 6 over and 4 up to get from the origin to the raycast. And you can set these whatever values you want. And also, this right here, this correction distance, is just another Pythagorean theorem to show that this is correct. This is the right distance. And this works. And it works in the Z. So we can just set this to whatever we want. 560, 724 minus 200. And, okay, our origin is now over here. Our raycast is here. Our final is there. And this is all of our numbers, and we have our corrections, and they go into the negatives correctly, and it gives us our final point correctly in the negatives, and we can change this around. We can say our distance is 500 meters away, and we can show it pushes it past the raycast. So all of this math here works, and it's this formula, and this is for the final X, Y, and Z. You can just replace the X with the Y and Z as you needed, and that's the formula for putting convergence into the game based on your targeted mech. It's stupidly easy, seemingly. But, I don't know. It just seems like I can't remember when I talked to him, he didn't seem like, oh yeah, that's possible or not, or, you know, he just alluded that it was more difficult than it seemed, but as long as they have these numbers, it's a basic programming logic just to put in this formula to give you a new number. Then all you need to do is, instead of the origin of the raycast, you just need to, instead of doing the origin of where the cockpit was doing the raycast, you put in the origin of the weapon emitter, but this is just your new convergence point. So instead of using the raycast one, you just use this. You just feed that back into your already existing system, and your convergence works. So that's awesome. It would promote so much good information warfare because you couldn't accurately target an opponent without having information on them. And also it buffs some mechs. So mechs that say have wide arms like the Jäger mech, I'm sure anybody out there that's done Jäger mech sniping, you've led a target and you're out aiming into the air at a flying target and you shoot and you're 2 Gauss rounds just go sailing past him on each side because you were converged to infinity instead of converging on him. That's bothered me so much. And also it buffs mechs that have a whole bunch of weapons in one location. So the Gargoyle arms or Nova arms, you don't need convergence. They're so close together. You can just, without convergence, without targeting information, put a fairly accurate shot into your opponents. While mechs like, say, the Timberwolf, and you have weapons spread all over them, they're not going to get as buffed by this. They're going to smear their damage over more stealthy opponents. But anyway, that's the concept. I don't want to take too long for this video, but thank you so much for watching, and good hunting.